What if your father had the legal right to kill you for enjoying intimacy? What if a single rumor from a slave could erase your name from history? Welcome to Rome, where the bedroom was a battlefield and pleasure was a death sentence. Rome wasn't just about gladiators, chariots, and emperors. Beneath the marble and glory, the empire built the most sophisticated system of intimate control in human history, a system so extreme it turned private acts into public crimes and love into a life-or-death gamble. For over 500 years, Roman society didn't just regulate intimacy, it weaponized it. Laws turned bedrooms into courtrooms. Fathers held the power of life and death over daughters. Emperors converted entire palaces into theaters of depravity. And the people? They didn't just watch, they cheered. We're diving into 7 shocking layers of intimate horror that make modern scandals look like playground gossip. By the end, you'll see how this obsession didn't just shape Roman culture, it helped destroy it. And just when you think you've heard the worst, wait until we reach the imperial bedrooms. One rumor about your private life could destroy your career and your life. Rome wasn't just obsessed with power, it measured it in the bedroom. In this empire, dominance meant status, and submission meant ruin. The rule was terrifyingly simple. Be the conqueror, never the conquered. And this wasn't an unspoken code. It was law. Enter the Lex Julia, a statute so severe it could end a man's life for taking the wrong role in private. Freeborn males accused of being passive faced crushing fines, exile, even execution. And here's the truly chilling part. A rumor was enough. No proof, no trial. Just whispers and your name vanished from public records. Julius Caesar himself fought this shadow for 40 years. At 19, during a diplomatic mission, he was accused of playing the submissive role with King Nicomedes. He conquered nations, toppled rivals, and became the most powerful man alive. Yet soldiers still mocked him in victory parades, singing, "Every woman's man and every man's woman." Imagine that. Conquer the world, but never escape the bedroom. And it wasn't just humiliation. Once branded passive, you lost your citizenship, your property, even your family. One nobleman, Lucius, was stripped of everything because of what he allegedly did with his own slave. This was Rome's real battlefield. Not swords, but rumors. One whisper could kill your career faster than a dagger. But if you think men lived in fear, wait until you hear what happened to women who dared to enjoy pleasure. Imagine if smiling during intimacy could get you executed by your own father. In Rome, men feared rumors. Women feared survival itself. The empire wrote laws that didn't just police behavior, they criminalized female pleasure. The most infamous? The Lex Julia, introduced by Augustus in 18 BCE. It didn't just target adultery. It turned a woman's natural response into a death sentence. Show too much enthusiasm with your husband? Dangerous. Move, moan, or breathe the wrong way? Grounds for accusation. And here's the nightmare. A woman's own father had the legal right to kill her on the spot. No trial, no appeal. Just execution because the law said he could. Even the emperor's family wasn't safe. Augustus exiled his own daughter, Julia, to a remote island for allegedly enjoying herself at parties. She was banned from wine, forbidden visitors, and buried outside the family tomb. Her crime? Passion. Medicine didn't help it tortured. Roman doctors forced women into ice baths at dawn, prescribed potions made of lead and mercury, even performed bloodletting to cool desire. Survive the treatment, and you were cured. Fail, and you died trying. Women learned to fake numbness like it was theater. Mothers wrote to daughters, "Bite your tongue if you feel pleasure rise." Imagine a world where staying alive meant learning how not to feel human. Rome turned women's bodies into state property. But their obsession didn't stop there. Next came the virgins, and their punishment was unthinkable. Rome didn't just punish pleasure, they buried women alive for purity violations. They called it sacred, but it was the slowest, cruelest death imaginable. Rome worshipped purity, but it wasn't holy. It was horror disguised as religion. The Vestal Virgins were chosen as little girls sometimes as young as 6 and sworn to 30 years of absolute chastity. Their mission? to protect Rome by tending the sacred flame. If the fire died, the empire believed the city would fall. And if a Vestal broke her vow, death. But not a quick one. Execution was illegal for these sacred women. So Rome invented a legal fiction. They weren't killing her, they were sending her to the goddess. The ritual was designed for maximum psychological terror. She was stripped of her holy robes, dressed as a bride, and carried through the silent streets, every citizen forbidden to speak, watch, or look away. At the edge of the city, an underground chamber waited. A bed, a lamp with one day's oil, bread, and water. Enough to pretend survival, never enough to save her life. Vestal Cornelia begged for mercy when Emperor Domitian condemned her after 20 years of service. "How can Caesar call me impure when he triumphed under my watch?" she cried. No one answered. She climbed down the ladder into the dark, knowing the earth above would seal her alive. The true nightmare? Every smile, every glance, every breath was monitored. Slaves spied on them. Priests examined them for signs of impurity. Girls grew up believing their thoughts could destroy an empire. If holy virgins faced death for one kiss, what do you think happened in the emperor's bedroom? What happens when the most powerful men on earth face zero consequences for their desires? If Vestals lived in terror of breaking vows, emperors lived in the opposite world, a world without limits. In Rome, imperial power didn't just bend the rules, it erased them. And when men who believe their gods want something, they take it. Tiberius started the descent. Retiring to Capri, he transformed the island into a nightmare paradise. Ancient sources say he trained toddlers called his little fish to swim between his legs in pools built for imperial games. Those who resisted drowned in the same water. His palace wasn't a home, it was a factory of conditioning, where children were broken before they could speak. Then came Caligula, a man who didn't hide depravity. He staged incestuous acts with his sisters in full view of the Senate. At banquets, he'd summon noblewomen. Sometimes noblemen's wives strip them and take them while their husbands watched, powerless to object. Refuse him, and you died. Applaud him, or you died slower. But even Caligula's horrors pale before Nero. He didn't just indulge fantasies, he engineered them. He castrated a boy named Sporus because he resembled Nero's dead wife, then married him in a public ceremony complete with bridal veil and dowry. Citizens were forced to celebrate this grotesque union as divine will. Oppose it? That was treason. And none of this was random. It was systematic. Entire teams existed for procurement, training, and disposal. Abuse wasn't scandal, it was policy. But Rome didn't just normalize abuse, it celebrated it as public sport. What if I told you the same society that buried virgins alive, hosted sex Olympics with cheering crowds? Rome didn't watch Netflix, they bought tickets to watch this. If you thought Roman depravity stayed behind palace doors, think again. Rome didn't just tolerate extreme acts, it turned them into entertainment. They turned intimacy into a competitive sport, complete with judges, scorecards, and cheering crowds. The most infamous example? Empress Messalina, wife of Emperor Claudius. According to ancient historians, she challenged Rome's top courtesan to an endurance contest. Who could satisfy the most partners in a single night? Official referees were present. Slaves kept hydration stations stocked. Doctors stood by like trainers in an arena. The courtesan gave up after 23. Messalina? She reached 25 and kept going, driven by drugs, ambition, and something darker, imperial pride. Records say the contest lasted through the night. And when she finally stopped, Rome didn't shame her. They wrote her victory in history like a military triumph. And this wasn't an isolated case. Private competitions were hosted in villas. Public events were advertised like gladiator matches. Stimulants flowed freely, powders from beetles, potions laced with herbs, even mercury-based tonics to keep the body going at deadly risk. Gladiator schools used these contests to build stamina. For them, intimacy wasn't pleasure, it was training for pain tolerance and dominance. Losers faced humiliation, or worse. Some never left the arena alive. And if that wasn't enough, Rome hired specialists to teach families these skills with live demonstrations. Before your wedding night, you didn't get advice, you got a live show. In Rome, intimacy wasn't private, it was performance. And to make sure you performed well, the empire created the Spintria Professional Human Manuals. Their job? Demonstrate every position, every technique. Live. Wedding coming up? The night before, your family hired Spintria. They'd arrive with props, oils, and specialized furniture. The bride, often just a teenager, sat and watched as two performers demonstrated what her husband would expect by morning. No drawings, no euphemisms. Just explicit reality explained step by step. And this wasn't rare. Elite homes scheduled household demos for slaves, ensuring they could please noble guests. Wealthy men preparing for intimate competitions hired Spintria for training camp sessions lasting days, teaching advanced endurance techniques. But the glamour hid a nightmare. Spintria began training his children in secret academies, forced into extreme flexibility drills, dangerous positions, and prolonged acts that shattered bodies. Half didn't survive to adulthood. The ones who did? Broken in body and mind. Most were crippled by 30, tossed aside by the very society that idolized them. For Romans, intimacy became engineering angles, timing, mechanics, emotion, gone. Connection, replaced by choreography. Rome didn't just control bedrooms, it carved its obsession into the streets. Imagine a city where every street sign was a giant phallus. Walk through ancient Pompeii, and you'll see it. Stone phalluses carved into street corners, worn smooth by thousands of hands. These weren't hidden in back alleys, they were the city's navigation system. Each symbol pointed the way to Rome's entertainment districts. The bigger the carving, the pricier the pleasures ahead. It was ancient GPS, powered by obscenity. But the obsession didn't stop there. Priapus statues grotesquely endowed fertility gods stood in gardens, at doorways, even over ovens in bakeries. Bread was baked under carvings of male anatomy. Dinner parties unfolded beneath painted walls of erotic scenes. And during the Liberalia festival, citizens paraded giant wooden phalluses through the streets, while respectable matrons crowned them with flowers in front of cheering crowds. All of it had a sacred excuse. These symbols, Romans claimed, protected against the evil eye. But the truth? It normalized a culture where obscenity was divine, and private acts became public spectacle. Rome didn't just live with excess, it worshipped it. Every home, every temple, every street corner reinforced the same message. Power and pleasure were public property. But here's the ultimate twist. Rome fell not despite these extremes, but because of them. Rome didn't fall because of barbarians alone. It fell because it weaponized intimacy, destroyed its own humanity, and rotted from within. What began as laws to enforce morality became chains that strangled society. They turned bedrooms into battlefields, marriage into performance, and pleasure into a crime punishable by death. The cost? Generations of women taught to fear their own bodies. Men living in paranoia, obsessed with dominance. Children broken in imperial games. An empire that celebrated obscenity as religion while its soul disintegrated. And here's the warning. Every society that tries to legislate desire, shame pleasure, or turn intimacy into performance walks Rome's path. When power faces no limits, when humanity becomes entertainment, collapse is inevitable. So next time someone says, history doesn't matter, remember this. Rome didn't just teach us how to build empires, it showed us how they die. Which Roman practice shocked you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more truths they never teach in school. Because those who don't learn from history, repeat it in their bedrooms.